guys, welcome back to my sewing channel. This is Kelly with Pick and Stitches, and today I'm going to walk you through how I make these design boards. Initially I was making these in kind of two sizes. I have quite a few of these smaller ones in a couple different colors. I just use leftover binding most of the time to finish them, so I kind of get this little bit of a rainbow effect. And then I was also making them in this little bit larger size. And what I was trying to do was really just utilize every bit of the poster boards that I was buying. So these are 20 by 30. So I was making 10-inch blocks, and then I was also making, this size, which ended up being 2 per block. But I've been making these giant blocks, and they don't seem to fit on any of my boards. In fact, this one I kind of pieced together here, and it's just got some pins in it so that I've got actually 3 boards that I'm using here to make that work. I guess pins are like a quilter's duct tape for the craft room. Anyway, so I'm going to walk you through the steps to make these. These are super simple, and you'll love having them in whatever size you need. I definitely need them for these bigger blocks in this sew along. I've also been working on some 16 by 16s that Lori Holt has in her applique groupings. So this will be really nice size to have, and it's time to just make it happen. So here we go. And make these 20 by 20. So that means I'm gonna take one cut down the middle, and then I'm gonna have 2 10-inch sections that I can make some smaller design boards that'll then again be these smaller sizes, which are great when you're doing a quilt that has a lot of small blocks. I use them all the time, but lately I just feel like I'm always reaching for something a little bit larger. So I have a rotary blade in right now that actually needs to be changed, so I'm not gonna be sad to have that one on some of this paper. And I'm just gonna grab a little bit bigger square. All right, so I'm gonna just use my big square here. These don't have to be perfect, but I do like to keep them relatively straight. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut 10 inches off of the side, and that'll leave me with 18 over there. So I've got my 10-inch cut off the side. This is going to leave me with a nice big board that will definitely be big enough for these blocks now, and I will enjoy having that this year. All right, so I've thrown my silicone mat down on my table because I don't want to get it on my cutting surface. And I've got some leftover warm and white from my last quilt, and I'm just going to lay it out. Now, this is cutting it pretty close. I usually like to leave a little bit more space, but I also like to use every last inch. So I'm just going to line it up, make sure that it's going to fit, and it looks like it should be just fine. And then I'm going to put glue on all 4 sides and then put it on my canvas here. And since this is a bigger block, I don't usually glue in the middle, but I am going to use just a little bit of spray adhesive so that I can make sure that it doesn't pull loose. Because sometimes when I'm doing applique and I put all the pins in it, I find that the glue leaches a little bit to the back, and I don't want it to stick and pull all the batting off with it. So make sure if you're going to use any of these sprays, you're doing it in a well-ventilated area. Okay, so I've had my hot glue gun heating up, and I'm just going to go right around the edge. And if I feel like the glue's setting too fast, I may switch and do like part of it, flip it over. But I think I can get it down pretty quick. I just have to be really careful when I flip it over to make sure that all my corners are covered with batting. That was a lot of glue, almost a whole stick. Okay, so I'm going to line up this end. Make sure that's staying nice and tight and clean. And then I'm just going to press it down. And I still haven't changed that rotary blade, so after this is all pressed down, I'll take it and just trim off this little excess. And that I find is so much easier than trying to center it perfectly, and that's just a headache. Okay, now on to the next one. I've repositioned my batting. I am going to double check it again just in case when I cut this off of the other quilt it wasn't quite square. And it is getting a little bit narrower. I may not be able to get my 20s on that big end piece. I may have to save that for my 10 inches. But same thing. I'm going to use spray adhesive. Make sure I leave the pretty side up. This one doesn't matter so much. And this was just something I had on hand for something else, Scotch 77. And off we go. I need another glue stick. All right, and I'm going to be really careful to keep it square because I know it's super narrow at the top over there. Press it down, and that's 2 done. Well, not done, but batting's in place, we'll say. Okay, so I went ahead and cut a little bit more batting just so we'll have enough. This is usually the parameters I prefer to work in, so you have some more leeway. But I'm going to just finish up these last couple and we'll be on to the next step. When I'm making these, I do like to kind of do like a batch all at once. It's just, you get the silicone mat out and you get the hot glue gun out and all your extra glue sticks, and it's just easier to have them all at the same time. So I'll probably go ahead and make those 10-inch ones today too. I'm just going to flip this one up and I'll cut it off in a minute and use the other side of my batting, in the spirit of moving things along. And I think this is the last one. It is. Okay. Both sides look fine. And this is the heavy duty foam board. I did make the mistake of buying the cheaper stuff. And I was really disappointed because on these bigger boards, you know, it's probably fine for the smaller boards, but on the larger sizes, it just gets so much leverage if you pick it up by the corner that the less heavy duty ones just didn't stand up. Again, like a 10-inch board, it probably doesn't matter, but I had a couple 18s that just, or 16s that I didn't like very much with that. So I'm going to take that needs to be changed rotary blade and be really careful with it, because this is when you get accidents with the rotary blade, is when you really should have just changed it. But I wanted to do all this before I got a new sharp blade on there. Okay, so you can pull the ruler back out and do this. I find for this size blade, it's too tall. If I was going to use this bigger blade on it, my 60, it would probably be fine, but that blade I don't want in this project, so I'm going to just kind of mirror the edge of this without the ruler, because if you just kind of keep slow and controlled, you've already cut the paper board, and it usually works out okay. So and these don't have to be perfect, but I did find that if you leave too much batting around the edges, then when you go to put your faux binding on, it just gets a little bit clunky. And I don't need anything else clunky in my life. Why do I keep holding this ruler? Speaking of clunky. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and trim up the rest of these. And then we'll have poster board on one side, batting on the other, and then we'll come back around and do our edging. So I'll speed this up for you guys. All right, so all our boards are trimmed up. And that is going to be so much cuter for these big, huge blocks. So that's going to be perfect. Okay, so just a regular 2.5 inch binding strip that I've pressed in half. I roll mine up before I put them on my quilts. And then we're just going to take that same strip and fold it in half like you would on a bias tape. And then iron that. And then we'll do this side to the middle. And then you've got it set up just like the double fold bias tape. And you could buy this at the craft store if you didn't want to go to the trouble to make it. But I find I usually have leftovers from other quilting projects, or some leftover jelly roll strips work well for that too. So I will speed this up and not bore you to tears with every inch of this. I did just add some water to this iron. I know steam is one of those things some people love and some people don't. I fall into the first camp, and I'm actually going to get down to my wool mat here, really take advantage of that and get a little bit longer runs here as well. I may have made too much of this pink, guys. I think I have enough binding here for another whole quilt. But now I'll have one in each size. I'll have a 10 inch and a 20 inch and a 16. Because I've got some unfinished 16s that have everything but the binding done. All right, and there we have it. Now we'll move over to the sewing machine, and we're just going to put a zigzag stitch right here down the middle, and then this will be the inside that goes against the board, and the zigzag will show us kind of where the middle of that strip is when we go to attach it. Okay, so I've moved over to my other machine. My Juki that I use most of the time only does a straight stitch, so I needed this one to do a zigzag, and I've gone ahead and set it up at a 4.5 inch zigzag, and I already had this blue thread loaded. A lot of times I just go ahead and make these with the white thread that I have on my machine most of the time, but we're just going to throw it in here and zip on through this entire length. And I'm going to slow myself down. I have a tendency to go pedal to the metal, and this zigzag stitch doesn't like to quite go that fast. And again, this doesn't have to be perfect because this is going to be on the inside, but I do want to make sure that that needle is catching both sides. And if it doesn't, I guess that's okay too, because we're going to hot glue it, but I'd try to catch both sides. All right, that's it for the blue one. Now we'll do the pink one. I've been trying out the connecting threads, and I do like their threads. I have used Aurifil 50 weight kind of exclusively in the past, and I figured I needed to at least see what else was out there. I do prefer the Aurifil, especially if I'm free motion quilting on the Juki over there, but these seem to be fine for straight line stitching. All right. So now we're going to do the same thing on the pink, still on my zigzag, 4.5 inches, not inches, millimeters. And I'm out of bobbin thread. Okay guys, this fabric was kind of misbehaving on me when I was stitching it through, and I think it's just a looser fabric than that blue polka dot that I have. So I'm just throwing a little bit of Mary Ellen's Best Press on it before I attach it to our boards. Okay guys, so we're in the final stretch here. This is going to be our last section that we need to do. I like to keep these extra silicone fingers and popsicle sticks on hand so that if you need to flatten it out, you're not burning your fingers. And I'm just going to set this out and go about halfway across the bottom, maybe a little more, a little less. But I'm going to leave that section so I can do a little bit of a join right here. And then I'm going to just stand my board up and set it directly on that glue. So it is going to be halfway across. So I'm getting this middle section here. And then I'm going to slowly work my way around all four sides until I get to the other end. So I kind of, in general, I'm going to lay this out, get a ballpark idea of how far I need to put my glue. Sorry, I'm trying to make sure you guys can see and that I can see. And then I just rock this guy back. And I'm going to run a bead of glue that whole entire length. And it's a little bit easier on the 10-inch size and it's going to be on this 20, but we can make it work. I don't want to get my glue too far so that I'm wrapping around that corner, because I want to make sure I'm adhering it while it's all still warm, as that corner gives me difficulty. There we go. So again, if your glue is really hot, make sure you've got some utensils to use, but my glue had time to cool that time. And I'm just going to make sure it's nice and secure and move on to the next side. Got a glue stick handy because I'm going to need it. All right, so pre-measure, I want to be about to there. This long tail is wanting to run off the table here. And this, my friends, is why we use the silicone mat. Because if that was on my cutting mat, I'd be a little bit more panicked about it. All right, let's see if we can get some of this excess tail up and out of the way over here. I made quite a lot, can you tell? Okay, let's try that again. So I want to go to about that corner. And that's going to be a little bit harder because it is attached halfway across. So I'm going to just flip it over and come at it from this side. And this works too. It's a little harder to do the whole edge. Let's see if we can try that this time for you. You have too many cords. Okay, so then I'll just lay that on top, press it down, and it doesn't have to be perfect, but I do like to have a little bit more of my fabric coming to the front than the back if I have to pick. So now I'm just going to glue this down until it overlaps by a little bit more than a couple, maybe 3 inches. So, but I'm not going to actually glue the part that overlaps. So I'm just going to lay down glue from here to the part where the fabric is already started. Maybe a little over, just so they can pull together. And then once this glue has set, I'm going to trim it probably about 3 inches further up. And then I'm just going to fold this end under. If you want to be more detailed than that, you can, but that's generally all I'm going to do. So I'll put a little bit of glue at the end here. And then, because that's closer to your fingers, you can fold it over with the stick. I generally just roll with the punches. Okay. And then I'm going to glue that the rest of the way down here or up here. Get another glue stick going. And I'm just gonna actually do this side so that I don't go too far. Because what you don't want to do is lay down your line of glue and realize that you, oh shoot, you'd gone to there and your fabric isn't going to reach that far out. So after that has set, I like to do the back first. And this is kind of a proof of concept. As I was cutting these guys out, I accidentally cut this one an inch too short. So I hot glued it back together. And then, sorry, that corner's bugging me. I hot glued it back together and then I placed some tape over it. This one may come apart on me, but we'll see. Again, I always try to be a little bit frugal if I can. So I'm going to start on the same side that has our join, and I'm going to just hit this side that is the last thing we just added. And I'm just going to roll around from the corner all the way. Now you kind of want to hit the edge of the fabric, but I don't want to hit it so close that as I fold it down, all the glue squirts out and into the board where you'll see it. And the same thing is going to be true on the other side where we get to the batting. So, and that's where your popsicle sticks may come in handy. You can kind of use them as a knife blade and pull that excess glue off. I don't use a whole lot of hot glue in this craft room, because it's just not the kind of projects that I'm generally working on, but for these, I love it. So I'm going to run down this whole length. Again, corner to corner. And you're going to do these just like you would a mitered corner. So I'm going to get this one folded in first, and then I'm going to fold this guy on top of it and get it exactly where I want it. Now this was that corner that was being a little finicky for me. So I'm going to get that one in just a second. All right, come here. And the good thing about hot glue is you can pull that back up if you need to. Obviously that's not ideal, but we can live with it. Okay, so once I get that kind of like I want it, then I'm going to fold this guy over and hold it down. This is on the back. It's not my favorite corner, but it'll be okay. All right, so now we'll go on to our second side. Again, I'm going to have this miter, and that one's going to be a lot nicer because it just doesn't have that funny corner. So I kind of get it creased, finger press it a little bit, and then that way when I get my glue on there, it's just easy. So I'm going to run the glue all the way across the bottom, and I'm going to get the tiniest little bit on that miter because I don't want it to squirt out and hit my finger, but I do want it to hold. So once you get those down, and that's going to give you that nice quilted look. All right. A little tiny bit there for my corner. Come on. All right. And we're on to the last corner of our backside. And I generally find that these corners aren't that finicky. And at the end of the day, it's the blocks that I'm making and putting on them that I care the most about. This is just a glorified bulletin board. I have a little bit of excess glue there, so I'm just gonna wipe it off with my popsicle stick so that it's not messy. Okay, so the back is done. Now we're gonna move on to the front. I'm gonna start on the same section of the front that has my join, and I'm gonna pay a little bit more attention to the corners on the front because I will see those. So I'm gonna just go all the way to the corner and tuck that guy in. So this is the easy one. And then once I get this side down, then I'll get on this miter tip. Make sure I'm gonna like it because it's gonna be on this side this time. Sorry, I'm running out of sewing room desk. Okay, I like that. So I'm gonna go corner to corner. And we'll fold that in. Sorry, we've got construction going on in the kitchen and it has just started back up. All right, so I'm going to check this corner. And that'll work. All right. Sometimes it's really hard to stop and make yourself do these kind of backlog projects, but when you do, then it just makes life so much easier on all your other projects. You just have to take the time. All right, we've got 2 more corners to go and we are done with this board. So I'm gonna fold it up, get my corner how I want it, and we're off to the races. In that little corner. Nope. And then I get too much, you know. It's just how it goes. All right, and we're gonna get this last mitered corner and our join glued down, and we're gonna have one of our 4 boards done. I do find that it is important to press your glue flat, otherwise you kind of have this rippling effect later on. But we have a finished design board, guys. Where did my block go? And now my block will fit on my board. So there we have it. 1 down, 3 to go. Okay guys, that wraps us up. So now we have our big 20 by 20 blocks. We have plenty of room for these bigger peaceful basket squares that we're gonna have this year. I've also been sewing, I'm gonna pick these up one at a time, Lori Holt's applique quilt, and these are quite large blocks as well. So now I have somewhere to put them together where it all fits on one size. And again, with this one, I started out using the 20 by 30 inch boards, and so that left us, I did 5 boards, so I have 5 of these big huge square ones that are 20 by 20, and I also have 10 that I haven't finished yet of the smaller 10 by 10 size. And if you want to use up all of the boards, that's a way to do it. The other option, and the way I initially did, was these kind of smaller. So this is 15 by 20. So it fits most of the blocks. These Lori Holt applique blocks and the Peaceful Baskets have kind of been the exception. I'm usually working on these smaller ones. I have tons of these smaller design boards that I've put together in the past, so I know I'm going to use the rest of these other 10 and they'll get into my normal rotation, and it's exactly what I needed. So I hope this tutorial was helpful. If you have any questions, definitely let me know. And if you like seeing these videos, definitely like and subscribe. It helps me out a ton, and I'd love to see what it is that you want to see next time. So we'll see you then.